After raising $90 million in the 2020 election cycle, the anti-Trump Political Action Committee, known as the Lincoln Project, has been coming apart at the seams in recent weeks. Last month, John Weaver was accused of sending unsolicited and sexually provocative messages online to young men and boys. He is a co-founder of the Lincoln Project and former aide to John McCain and John Kasich. According to the New York Times, one of the boys was just 14 years old when Weaver first contacted him. The Lincoln Project leadership was reportedly aware of at least 10 allegations of harassment back in June of last year. In addition, the Associated Press reports more than half of the money raised by the project in 2020 was paid to consulting firms tied to the group's founders and staff. It's raising questions about what the money, supposedly going to campaign efforts to defeat former President Trump, was really being used for. The controversies have led to a number of resignations from the group, including co-founder Steve Schmidt. The former Bush, Schwarzenegger, and McCain strategist was one of the most high-profile members of the Lincoln Project. He gave up his seat on the board last week. Here's how Schmidt described his view of the project to 60 Minutes' Leslie Stahl last October.
Do you bear any responsibility, you personally, for bringing the country to where it is?
When I look at the party and I see what it's become, I think that I was naive about how deeply embedded the racism issue was in the party.
Have you given up your careers?
None of us will ever work in Republican politics. Again, we joke that, like some of the explorers who came to the New World, they were incentivized by the captain when he burned the ships, that there was no return going back.
Axios political reporter Lachlan Markay broke the news of Schmidt's resignation, and he joins me now. Lachlan, welcome. There is a lot going on here, so let's take a step back and examine the story the Lincoln Project sold during the 2020 election. Who were they, Lachlan, and who was their target audience?
Well, these were apostate Republicans who were, in their telling, speaking their consciences, making their voices heard, saying that, they would not move with the party to which they had all belonged, that was now becoming fully enthronged to Donald Trump. They had objected to him. They despised him really from the beginning, and they set out to not just speak out against him, but to effectively try to take him down. This became very quickly one of the wealthiest, most deep-pocketed super PACs on either side of the political aisle during the 2020 election, and in fact ended up receiving some significant financial backing from Democrats as they went after not just Donald Trump, but Republicans vying for competitive Senate seats as well. Their target audience, though, was really only one person, and that was Donald Trump. They ended up running a lot of ads in the D.C. media market in particular with the sole goal of catching his eye, drawing his ire, and in their view, throwing him off track and distracting him.
Well, I want to play a short clip from 60 Minutes. This is Lincoln Project co-founder Rick Wilson discussing fundraising.
The easiest way in the world for a Republican strategist to make money right now is to shut up and say nice things about Donald Trump. So clearly we're in the wrong line of work.
But the Lincoln Project ended up bringing in tens of millions of dollars. At this point, Lachlan, what do we know about where that money was really going?
They used a sort of accounting maneuver that really highlights a glaring loophole in the disclosure of campaign finances, and incidentally is a loophole that the Trump campaign used to great effect as well. A lot of money, the majority of the money they raised was paid to consulting firms run by the group's founders and senior staffers. But where it went from there is sort of the mystery. A lot of this money was buying ads, digital ads, and TV ads. There were a lot of subcontractors that that vendors associated with its founders were using. So exactly where that money ended up simply is not knowable from the public record, because groups like this are not required to disclose subcontractors or arrangements along those lines. So that was something that the Trump campaign used to hide the eventual sources of hundreds of millions of dollars of money. And absent, the founders of the Lincoln Project and the folks responsible for those funds being more forthcoming about what it ended up paying for, we really would require a full audit of their spending throughout 2020. We may not know where most of that money ended up.
Well, I understand the Lincoln Project reportedly hired a law firm to investigate these allegations against John Weaver, but it appears that some of the firm's partners are Lincoln Project donors themselves. Was that not considered a potential conflict of interest?
The group had so many donors, including from a lot of top law firms, that I think that would have conflicted them out from using really any major law firm to conduct this audit. I think that the folks who run the group understand that they can't whitewash this or brush this aside. And think that it's in the best interest of the organization to have a full accounting of what happened. I also think there's a lot of internal recriminations over how this happened, and that there are well-meaning people in the group who were as shocked as the rest of the general public to find out about it, and they want to be sure that people in senior leadership roles in the organization are held to account if in fact they did keep that not just from the public but from others involved with the group. So certainly it's well worth pointing out and being skeptical about and scrutinizing any potential conflicts. But I think there are a lot of folks in the organization who do want this audit to uncover what really happened here.
I'm curious, Lachlan, about the timing here. Why did it take until after the election for really what's been this flood of bad news about the Lincoln Project to come out?
Yeah, I think it's similar to a lot of the sort of Me Too stories that have dominated headlines for a few years now, in the sense that these things can be open secrets in the small circles in which the perpetrators travel. And it really only becomes public when one person decides to take that step and make public what they went through and those allegations. And once that happens, very often, that initial crack in the dam leads to a flood of additional people coming out with similar stories. And that seems to be what happened here. Whether it had anything to do in terms of timing with the election is, I'm not sure about, but there were, especially in conservative media, reporters who were doggedly chasing this, finally got a few people to come out with their stories and share them publicly, and from there the more and more stories just kept rushing in. So I think it's analogous to a lot of similar stories that we've seen that have taken down high profile individuals who've engaged in sexually inappropriate practices.
All right, we'll continue to watch the story. Lachlan Markay. Lachlan, thank you very much.
You bet.